So all you guys now know that the Supreme Court has announced its decision in Windsor versus the United States. And we won everything we asked and hoped for. Wow.
On June 26, 2013, the U.S. Supreme Court struck down a key section of a law that discriminated against same-sex spouses. The decision was a personal victory for Edie Windsor and an important step towards marriage equality. Edith Schleim was born in Philadelphia in 1929 to Russian Jewish immigrants. The family struggled financially during the Depression, but Edie excelled academically and after high school enrolled at Temple University. As a teenager, Edie knew she was attracted to women. At that time in the U.S., however, same-sex relationships were stigmatized and throughout the country outlawed. Like many others of the era, Edie attempted to ignore her feelings and follow a conventional path. In 1951, she married a man named Saul and changed her last name to Windsor. Less than a year later, Edie ended the marriage and moved to New York City, where she embarked on a life that was boldly unconventional. She received a master's degree in applied mathematics and became a computer programmer at IBM, rising through the ranks of a male-dominated, cutting-edge field. She pushed boundaries outside of work, too. Participating in the city's growing LGBTQ+ scene had risks. It was illegal to dance publicly with a same-gender partner, for instance, but it also offered Edie opportunities for community and companionship. When Edie and Thea Spire met in 1963, they felt an immediate connection. 4 years later, despite the fact that they could not legally marry in the U.S., they got engaged. Edie was not open about her sexuality at work, so to avoid questions, Thea proposed with a diamond brooch instead of a traditional ring. Reflecting on this choice, Edie later testified, "Like countless other same-sex couples, we engaged in a constant struggle to balance our love for one another and our desire to live openly and with dignity on the one hand, with our fear of disapproval and discrimination from others on the other." Edie and Thea were white and educated. Thea came from a very wealthy family. Both of them had successful careers, and they enjoyed a comfortable lifestyle. But these factors could not fully insulate them from a society that rejected and criminalized their relationship. During the Stonewall Uprising of 1969, members of New York City's LGBTQ+ community, led by a diverse group of gender-defiant and non-conforming young people, fought back against police raids and stood up for their rights to live and love openly. The events inspired Edie to join the struggle for LGBTQ+ equality. She became a full-fledged activist, marching in pride parades, fighting for those with HIV/AIDS, and protesting discrimination. In the decades after Stonewall, not everyone in the LGBTQ+ community saw marriage equality as a priority or even a goal. Some believed it represented heterosexual norms and institutions that were inherently flawed. Yet for others, like Edie and Thea, marriage rights represented legal equality and social acceptance. In the 1990s and through the early 2000s, efforts to gain legal recognition for same-sex relationships gained traction. Across the country, some cities and states began offering same-sex couples the option of domestic partnerships and later civil unions. These alternatives lacked the same protections and status that marriage afforded to straight spouses. Nevertheless, marriage equality, which had once seemed an impossible dream, now seemed in reach. The pushback was intense. In 1996, the U.S. government passed the Defense of Marriage Act, or DOMA. DOMA declared that no state would be required to recognize a same-sex marriage performed in another. It also defined marriage, for the purpose of federal law, as a union between a man and a woman. Same-sex couples were left unprotected and denied numerous privileges enjoyed by heterosexual spouses, including the right to visit spouses in the hospital, adopt one another's biological children, and inherit property from a spouse without being taxed. When New York City opened up domestic partnership to same-sex couples in 1993, Edie and Thea were among the first to formalize their relationship, and they held out hope that they would eventually gain the right to marry in their home state. That hope was buoyed when Massachusetts became the first state to legalize same-sex marriage in 2004. Unfortunately, time was not on their side. Over the years, Thea was gradually immobilized by multiple sclerosis. Now she was suffering from an incurable heart ailment. Eager to marry before Thea passed, they headed to Canada, where it was legal. When Thea died in 2009, Edie inherited her substantial estate. Thea and Edie had been together for 44 years. Had they been a heterosexual couple, Edie would not have had to pay federal taxes on the estate. But under DOMA, the same rules did not apply to her. Edie was required to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars, which spoke to the injustice of a system that denied certain people their full rights solely because of whom they loved.
I am today an out lesbian, who just sued the United States of America, which is kind of overwhelming for me.
Edie sued the government and eventually ended up before the Supreme Court, which declared DOMA unconstitutional. As a result, same-sex spouses married in those states or countries where it was now legal were entitled to the same federal benefits as their heterosexual counterparts.
Section 3 of DOMA is dead. So people who are married, gay and lesbian couples who are married, now have full marriages entitled to equal respect under both state and federal law.
By taking a stand in the nation's highest court, Edie helped favorably influence public opinion about LGBTQ+ rights and paved the way for the 2015 Supreme Court ruling that recognized same-sex marriage as a constitutional right with the full protection of the law. I thought about Edie that day, President Obama remembered. I thought about all the millions of quiet heroes across the decades whose countless small acts of courage slowly made an entire country realize that love is love, and who in the process made us all more free. A year before she died in 2017, Edie Windsor remarried legally in the United States.